The massive Zephyrian warship appeared at the edge of Harmony Junction space station like a dark storm cloud. Its black metal hull stretched for miles, covered in sharp edges and weapons that could destroy entire planets. Inside the ship's most protected chamber, Empress Valeria Nexus sat on her throne of polished stone, her silver eyes cold as winter ice. Valeria was tall and strong, with skin that sparkled like starlight and muscles that could crush steel. She wore armor made from the bones of her enemies, and her crown was carved from a meteor that had once threatened her homeworld. Every Zephyrian respected her, and every enemy feared her. She had built the greatest empire in the galaxy through strength and war, but today even the mighty Empress felt worried. The Galactic Council had called for peace talks, and many species were joining together against her empire. They said the Zephyrians were too violent, too cruel. They wanted to stop her people from taking more worlds. "Your Majesty," said General Kane, her most trusted warrior, "the Council grows stronger. They have new weapons, new allies. Perhaps we should consider their offer." Valeria's eyes flashed with anger. The Zephyrian Empire does not bow to weaklings. We take what we need when we need it. That is the way of strength. She stood from her throne, her armor clanking like thunder. "But we will go to their little meeting. Let them see what real power looks like. Let them understand that we are not afraid." The general nodded, but his face showed doubt. "And what of the princess, Your Majesty? Will she come with us?" Valeria's strong expression cracked for just a moment. Princess Kira, her only daughter, her greatest shame. The girl had been born different, weaker than other Zephyrians. She could not walk without help, could not speak clearly, could not fight like a true warrior. In their society, such weakness was worse than death. "She will stay hidden in her chambers," Valeria said quietly. "The council must not see her. They must not know how weak the royal bloodline has become." The truth was more painful than any battle wound. Valeria loved her daughter more than life itself, but she could never show it. A Zephyrian ruler who had a weak child would be seen as cursed, unfit to lead. Other houses would challenge her throne, and civil war would tear the empire apart. The space station called Harmony Junction was built in the middle of nowhere, far from any single planet or star system. It belonged to no one species, making it perfect for meetings between enemies. The station was huge, with silver walls and bright lights that hurt Zephyrian eyes. It was built by many species working together, something that disgusted Valeria. As her ship docked, Valeria put on her public face. She was the Empress, the Iron Fist of the Zephyrian Empire, the destroyer of worlds. She would not show weakness, not even for a moment. The docking bay was full of aliens from across the galaxy. Blue-skinned Centauri with their fancy clothes and gentle manners. Green Vorthen with their huge eyes and peaceful ways. And worst of all, humans. Soft, weak, short-lived humans who somehow thought they could stand against the might of the Zephyrian Empire. "Welcome to Harmony Junction," said a small human woman with gray hair and kind eyes. "I am Ambassador Lisa Monroe. We are honored by your presence, Empress Valeria." Valeria looked down at the human like she was examining a bug. "I am here because the council requested it, nothing more. Let us finish this quickly." The human smiled, not afraid despite facing the most dangerous being in the galaxy. "Of course, Your Majesty. We have prepared quarters for you and your staff. The negotiations will begin tomorrow." As they walked through the station, Valeria noticed something that made her uncomfortable. The different species were not just working together, they seemed to actually like each other. A Centauri child was playing with a human child, laughing and sharing toys. A Vorthen was teaching a group of mixed species how to fix a broken machine. Everyone seemed happy, peaceful, weak. "This place disgusts me," she whispered to General Kane. "Look at them. No order, no strength, no purpose. How can they hope to build anything lasting?" The general nodded, but he was watching a group of beings working together to move a heavy crate. Each species used their different strengths to help. It was efficient, effective, and no one got hurt. It was not the Zephyrian way, but it worked. Valeria's quarters were large and comfortable, but they felt like a prison. She had been in many battles, faced many enemies, but she had never felt so alone. Back home, she was surrounded by warriors who followed her every command. Here, she was just another delegate at a peace conference. That evening, she sat in her private chambers and did something she rarely allowed herself to do. She thought about Princess Kira. The girl was back on the ship, alone in her room, probably reading one of her books about other worlds and other species. Kira loved to learn about different cultures, different ways of life. It was another sign of her weakness. But it was also the one thing that made her happy. Valeria remembered when Kira was very small, before the doctors told them about her condition. The little girl had been so curious, so full of joy. She would ask endless questions about everything she saw. Why is the sky purple, Mama? Why do the flowers sing? Why do some people have more arms than others? Then came the diagnosis. The genetic condition that would keep Kira from ever being a true Zephyrian warrior. The weakness that would mark her as inferior for the rest of her life. The shame that would follow the royal family forever. Valeria had tried to be strong, to accept it as the will of the gods. But inside, her heart broke a little more each day. She watched her daughter struggle to walk, struggle to speak, struggle to do things that came naturally to other children. And she could do nothing to help because helping would mean admitting weakness. The next morning brought the first day of negotiations. The great conference hall was filled with representatives from hundreds of species. They all looked small and weak compared to the Zephyrian delegation, but they seemed confident, united. They had something the Zephyrians did not have. They worked together. The Zephyrian Empire must end its aggressive expansion, announced the Centauri diplomat. Too many peaceful worlds have been conquered. Too many innocent beings have been enslaved or killed. Valeria stood, her armor gleaming under the bright lights. The strong take from the weak. This is the natural order of the universe. We take what we need to survive and grow. If you cannot defend your worlds, you do not deserve to keep them. A human delegate raised his hand. But what if there was a better way? What if we could all grow stronger by working together instead of fighting each other? Valeria laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Cooperation is the excuse of the weak. The Zephyrian Empire has conquered half the galaxy through strength alone. We do not need your help, human. The negotiations continued for hours, with neither side willing to bend. The Council wanted the Zephyrians to stop their expansion and return conquered worlds. The Zephyrians wanted to keep everything they had taken and demanded tribute from the other species. As the day wore on, Valeria began to feel tired. Not physically tired, but tired in her soul. She had spent her entire life fighting, conquering, proving her strength. But what had it really gotten her? A daughter she had to hide, an empire built on fear, and a galaxy full of enemies. When the session finally ended, she walked back to her quarters feeling more alone than ever. Tomorrow would bring more negotiations, more arguments, more proof that the galaxy would never accept the Zephyrian way. But tonight, she just wanted to see her daughter, to remember why she fought so hard to stay strong. She did not know that everything was about to change, that one simple act of kindness would shake the foundations of everything she believed. The second day of negotiations was going nowhere. Empress Valeria sat in the conference room listening to the same arguments she had heard yesterday. The Centauri wanted peace. The Vorthan wanted cooperation. The humans wanted understanding. All of them wanted her to give up the power she had spent her life building. "We must find common ground," said Ambassador Lisa Monroe, the human woman who seemed to think words could solve everything. "Surely there is something we can agree on." Valeria's silver eyes were cold as space. "The only common ground is strength. The weak serve the strong. This is the law of nature." A young Centauri diplomat leaned forward. "But what about those who cannot be strong in the traditional sense? What about the sick, the elderly, the disabled? Do they have no value?" The question hit Valeria like a physical blow. She thought of Princess Kira, hidden away on the ship, and her face became a mask of stone. Those who cannot contribute to society are a burden. Resources should go to those who can fight, who can work, who can make the empire stronger. The words tasted like poison in her mouth, but they were what a Zephyrian Empress was supposed to say. She had said them so many times that she almost believed them herself. The morning session ended with no progress. Both sides returned to their corners, no closer to agreement than when they started. Valeria felt a headache building behind her eyes. She needed a break from all the talking, all the useless words. "I will take lunch in my quarters," she told General Kane. "Your Majesty," he said carefully, "perhaps it would be better to eat in the main dining hall. Show the other species that we are not afraid to be among them." Valeria wanted to refuse, but she knew he was right. A Zephyrian Empress could not hide from weaklings. She had to project strength at all times, even when she felt tired and frustrated. "Very well," she said. "But I will not stay long." She was about to leave when she made a decision that surprised even herself. "Bring Princess Kira, it is time." She saw something of the galaxy beyond her books. General Kane's face showed his shock. "Your Majesty, are you certain? If the other delegates see her?" "They will see what I allow them to see," Valeria said firmly. "My daughter is still a princess of the Zephyrian Empire. She has a right to witness these historic proceedings." The truth was more complicated. Valeria had barely slept, thinking about the Centauri diplomat's question. What about those who cannot be strong? What about the disabled? The words had haunted her all night because they were about more than politics. They were about her daughter. 20 minutes later, Valeria walked into the main dining hall with Princess Kira beside her. The girl moved slowly, using a walking device that helped support her weight. Her speech was difficult to understand, but her eyes were bright with intelligence and curiosity. The dining hall was a beautiful space with tall windows that looked out into the stars. Tables were arranged in a casual way, allowing beings from different species to sit together. The smell of food from dozens of worlds mixed in the air, creating something that was actually pleasant. Princess Kira stopped walking and stared around the room with wonder. She had never seen so many different types of beings in one place. There were tall Vorthen with their green skin and large eyes, small, furry Kaleri with their quick movements and musical voices, Centauri with their blue skin and elegant clothes, and humans, more humans than she had ever seen before. "It is beautiful, Mother," Kira said, her words slow but clear enough. "Look at how they all eat together. Look at how they share their food." Valeria's jaw tightened. To her, the mixing of species was a sign of weakness, of lost identity. But she could see the joy in her daughter's face, and she did not have the heart to crush it. They found a table near the edge of the room, where they could observe without being too close to the other diners. Valeria ordered food for both of them, plain dishes that would not upset their Zephyrian digestion. Princess Kira sat quietly, but her eyes never stopped moving, taking in every detail of the amazing scene around her. The dining hall was staffed mostly by humans, which made sense since humans seemed to enjoy serving others. To Valeria, this was proof of their weakness, but she had to admit they were efficient. The food came quickly and was well prepared. As they ate, soft music began playing from speakers around the room. It was gentle, peaceful music, unlike the war songs and battle hymns that filled Zephyrian halls. Several human staff members began moving between the tables, clearing dishes and cleaning surfaces, but they moved in rhythm with the music. Princess Kira watched them with fascination. "They move like dancers, Mother. Even when they work, they make it beautiful." Valeria looked more closely and saw that her daughter was right. The humans were not just working, they were performing a kind of dance. They moved together, passing each other smoothly, their actions coordinated like a well-trained military unit. But instead of preparing for war, they were creating harmony. One of the human staff members caught her attention. He was young, perhaps in his 20s, with brown hair and kind eyes. He moved with particular grace, making even the simple act of stacking plates look elegant. His name tag read Alex Carter. As Alex worked, he noticed Princess Kira watching him. Instead of looking away or pretending not to see her, he smiled and gave her a small wave. Kira's face lit up with surprise and delight. No one outside her immediate family had ever acknowledged her so warmly, the music continued, and more humans joined the dance-like work routine. They were cleaning tables, serving food, and taking care of the dining hall, but they made it look effortless and beautiful. Other diners had stopped their conversations to watch. Smiling at the unexpected performance, Princess Kira began moving her hands in small gestures, trying to copy the rhythm she saw. Her movements were limited by her condition, but she found ways to participate in her own way. She swayed gently in her chair, her face full of joy. Valeria watched her daughter with mixed feelings. Part of her was angry that Kira was drawing attention to herself, risking exposure of her weakness. But another part of her was amazed by the happiness she saw in her daughter's face. When was the last time Kira had looked so alive, so engaged with the world around her? Alex Carter finished cleaning a nearby table and approached them. Valeria's muscles tensed, ready to protect her daughter from whatever cruel comment or mocking gesture might come. In Zephyrian society, the disabled were often targets for ridicule, but Alex did not mock or stare. He simply knelt down beside Princess Kira's chair, bringing himself to her eye level. His movements were slow and gentle, non-threatening. "Hello," he said softly. "I saw you enjoying the music. Would you like to dance?" The words were so unexpected that Valeria almost could not process them. This human wanted to dance with her daughter? The disabled princess that she had to hide from her own people? "Princess." Kira looked at Alex with wide eyes, then turned to her mother. The hope in her face was heartbreaking and beautiful at the same time. "Mother, may I?" Valeria felt something crack inside her chest. Her daughter was asking permission to experience joy, to be included in something beautiful. How could she say no? But how could she say yes? If word got back to the Zephyrian Empire that the princess had danced with a human, it would be seen as the ultimate disgrace. The dining hall had grown quiet. Other diners were watching, waiting to see what would happen. Some looked curious, others concerned, but none of them looked cruel or mocking. They seemed to understand that something important was happening. Alex waited patiently, his kind eyes never leaving Princess Kira's face. He was not asking for permission from the mighty Empress. He was asking a young person if she wanted to dance, as if her answer was the only one that mattered. Valeria's throat felt tight. She thought of all the times she had told herself that hiding Kira was for the girl's own good, that she was protecting her from a cruel world. But looking at this human's face, she saw no cruelty, no judgment. She saw only kindness. "Yes," she whispered, the word coming out before she could stop it. "You may dance." Princess Kira's smile was brighter than any star in the galaxy. Alex's smile was just as bright as he stood and offered her his hand. "Then let's make some beautiful music together." As Alex gently helped Princess Kira from her chair, Valeria realized that her world was about to change in ways she could never have imagined. She had spent her life believing that strength came from hiding weakness, from showing no vulnerability. But this human was showing her a different kind of strength entirely, the strength to include rather than exclude. The strength to see beauty where others saw only flaws. The strength to offer kindness without asking for anything in return. For the first time in years, Empress Valeria Nexus was about to learn something new. Alex Carter held out his hand to Princess Kira with the same gentle smile he had shown from the beginning. The dining hall had grown quiet, but it was not the uncomfortable silence of people waiting to see someone fail. It was the expectant quiet of people hoping to see something beautiful. Princess Kira looked at his offered hand, then at her mother. Empress Valeria's face was tight with worry, but she nodded once. The princess reached out with her shaking hand and placed it in Alex's. "Steady one. Don't worry about doing anything perfectly," Alex said softly. "Dancing is not about being perfect. It's about feeling the music and moving with joy." He helped her stand, supporting her weight carefully. Princess Kira's legs were weak and she needed her walking device to move safely. But Alex did not try to make her walk normally. Instead, he looked at her walking device like it was part of the dance. "This is beautiful," he said, touching the metal frame gently. "It's like you have your own special dance partner built right in." Princess Kira giggled, a sound that made several nearby diners smile. She had never heard anyone say anything positive about her walking device before. To her, it had always been a sign of her weakness, her failure to be a proper Zephyrian. But Alex made it sound like something wonderful. The music was still playing, soft and sweet. Alex began to move slowly, not trying to make Princess Kira copy him, but moving in a way that included her. He swayed gently from side to side, and she found she could sway with him. When he moved his free hand in the air, she moved hers too. "You're a natural," Alex said, and his voice was full of genuine admiration. "Look how gracefully you move." Empress Valeria watched from her seat, her heart beating fast. She expected to see her daughter struggle, to see her fail and be embarrassed. Instead, she saw something she had never seen before. She saw Princess Kira dancing. Alex was not trying to make Kira move like a normal person. He was letting her move like herself, and then he was moving with her. When she could only lift her arm a little way, he matched that movement. When she could only take small steps, he took small steps too. He was not dancing down to her level. He was dancing at her level and making it beautiful. Other humans working in the dining hall began to notice what was happening. Instead of continuing their work, they stopped to watch. Then, one by one, they began to clap in rhythm with the music. Not loud clapping that would be scary, but gentle clapping that added to the music. A young human woman with red hair began to dance near them. Not trying to join in, but creating a circle of movement around Alex and Princess Kira. Another human man started moving dishes in rhythm, making his work part of the dance. Soon, 5 or 6 humans were dancing around the princess, creating a safe space where she could move freely. Princess Kira's face was shining with happiness. She had never been the center of attention for something good before. In Zephyrian society, attention meant judgment, and judgment meant failure. But here, attention meant celebration. "Look at everyone dancing with us," Alex said, spinning her gently in her walking device. "They're not dancing for us or at us. They're dancing with us." The princess looked around and saw that he was right. The humans were not performing for the other diners. They were including her in their performance. They were making her part of something bigger and more beautiful than herself. Even some of the non-human diners began to respond. A Centauri diplomat started clapping along with the rhythm. A group of Vorthan began humming harmony to the music. A few Kaleri were moving their furry bodies in time with the beat. Empress Valeria felt tears starting in her eyes, something that had not happened in decades. Her daughter was not just dancing, she was leading a dance. All these different beings were following her rhythm, moving to her pace, celebrating her joy. "This is impossible," she whispered to herself. "This cannot be real," but it was real. And, it was beautiful in a way that made her chest hurt. Alex continued to guide Princess Kira through the dance, but now he was letting her lead more. When she wanted to spin, he helped her spin. When she wanted to move her arms in big circles, he moved with her. When she wanted to clap, he clapped with her. "You're teaching me new moves," Alex said, laughing. "I've never seen anyone dance with such pure joy before." Princess Kira tried to say something, but her words were hard to understand. Alex leaned close to listen, his face serious and patient. Whatever she said made him smile even brighter. "She says the music feels like flying," Alex announced to the room. "She says dancing makes her feel like she can fly." The clapping grew a little louder, and more beings joined in. Even a few Zephyrian junior officers who had been eating at a far table were watching with interest. They looked confused, as if they could not understand what they were seeing, but they were not looking away. Valeria realized that her daughter was doing something no Zephyrian had ever done before. She was creating unity among different species, not through conquest or fear, but through joy. She was showing everyone in the room that happiness could be shared, multiplied, made bigger by including others. The song was reaching its end, but Alex was not ready to stop. He looked around the room and raised his voice. "This is Princess Kira of the Zephyrian Empire," he announced. "She is the most graceful dancer I have ever had the honor to dance with. Let's give her the applause she deserves." The applause that followed was unlike anything Valeria had ever heard. It was not the polite clapping of a diplomatic function. It was not the fearful applause of subjects honoring their ruler. It was genuine appreciation for something beautiful. Princess Kira's face was red with exertion and happiness. She was breathing hard, but she was smiling so wide it looked like her face might break. She had never received applause for anything before. She had never been praised for being herself. Alex helped her back to her seat, making sure she was comfortable and safe. "Thank you for the dance, Princess. You made my day much more beautiful." As the applause faded and the normal sounds of the dining hall returned, other diners began approaching their table. Not to stare or to whisper, but to speak to Princess Kira directly. "That was wonderful," said a Centauri woman with kind eyes. "You move with such grace and joy." It was inspiring to watch. A human man in a military uniform nodded respectfully. "Princess, your dance reminded me of my daughter back on Earth. She has cerebral palsy, and she moves with the same beautiful spirit you showed us today." More beings came forward, each with something positive to say. They talked about relatives or friends who had different abilities. They shared stories of people who had overcome challenges. They spoke about the beauty of inclusion and acceptance. Princess Kira listened to each person with wide eyes. She had never heard so many positive words about people like her. She had never known that there were others across the galaxy who faced similar challenges and were still valued, still loved, still seen as important. Empress Valeria sat in her chair, overwhelmed by what she was witnessing. Her daughter was not being hidden or protected. She was being celebrated. She was being seen as a person of worth, not because she had overcome her disabilities, but because she was valuable exactly as she was, the human waiter Alex had started. Something that was spreading through the room like ripples in a pond. Conversations were starting between species that had never spoken before. Beings were sharing stories about diversity and inclusion in their own cultures. The dining hall was becoming a place of understanding rather than just a place to eat. "Mother," Princess Kira said, her voice tired but happy, "can we come back tomorrow? I want to learn more dances." Valeria looked at her daughter's shining face and felt something fundamental shift inside her. For the first time in years, she was seeing Kira not as a burden or a shame, but as a gift. A gift she had been too blind to appreciate. "Yes, my dear," she said, her voice softer than it had been in years. "We can come back tomorrow." She did. Not know it yet, but tomorrow would bring changes that would shake the very foundations of her empire. The dance was over, but its effects were just beginning. That evening, Empress Valeria could not sleep. She kept thinking about the dance, about the way her daughter's face had glowed with happiness, about the way all those different beings had celebrated Princess Kira just for being herself. It was so different from everything she had been taught about strength and weakness. Princess Kira had fallen asleep quickly, exhausted but happy from her first real social interaction with beings outside her family. She clutched a small flower that one of the Centauri children had given her after the dance. In her sleep she was smiling. Valeria sat by the window looking out at the stars, trying to understand what had happened. In one afternoon her understanding of the galaxy had been turned upside down. She had seen her daughter treated with respect and kindness by beings she had always considered enemies or weaklings. The next morning brought another day of negotiations, but Valeria found it hard to concentrate. The other delegates were discussing trade agreements and territorial boundaries, but all she could think about was the way Princess Kira had danced. When the morning session ended, she made an unusual decision. Instead of reviewing battle plans with General Kane, she walked to the station's library. She had heard that it contained information about all the species in the galaxy, their cultures and their ways of life. The library was quiet and peaceful, filled with beings from many worlds, reading and learning together. Valeria found a section about human culture and began to read. What she discovered amazed her. Humans had something called the Paralympics, where people with disabilities competed in sports and were celebrated as heroes. They had laws that required buildings to be accessible to everyone, no matter how they moved or what help they needed. They had schools that taught all children together. Believing that diversity made everyone stronger, she read about human scientists who had made great discoveries despite being blind or deaf. She learned about human leaders who had changed their world even though they used wheelchairs or had other differences. She discovered that humans did not see disability as weakness, but as a different way of experiencing the world than she found. Information about other species. The Centauri had a tradition of honoring their elders and disabled members as wise advisors, believing that different perspectives led to better decisions. The Vorthon celebrated individuals who thought differently, saying that their unique minds often solved problems others could not, even more surprising. She learned that many of the galaxy's greatest achievements had come from the cooperation of different species, each contributing their unique strengths. The medical advances that saved millions of lives, the technologies that allowed faster space travel, the peace treaties that ended wars, all of them had been created by diverse groups working together. Valeria sat back in her chair, overwhelmed by what she was learning. Her entire empire was built on the idea that uniformity meant strength, that differences were weaknesses to be eliminated. But the evidence was clear that the opposite was true. That afternoon she brought Princess Kira to the dining hall again. Word had spread about the previous day's dance, and many beings approached them with warmth and friendship. Princess Kira was no longer nervous. She greeted each visitor with growing confidence. Alex Carter was working again, and he came over to their table during his break. "How are you today, Princess Kira? Ready for another dance?" Princess Kira nodded eagerly, but this time she had a request. "Could you teach me how to teach others? I want to help people dance like you helped me." Alex's face lit up with understanding. "You want to learn how to include others the way we included you yesterday?" "Yes," Princess Kira said, her words clearer today than they had been in months. "I want to make other people feel the way you made me feel." Valeria watched as Alex began, showing her daughter simple ways to welcome others into activities. He taught her how to adapt movements so anyone could participate. He showed her how to focus on what people could do rather than what they could not do. "The secret," Alex explained, "is to never try to fix people or change them. You just find ways to include them exactly as they are." A young Centauri child who had been watching came over shyly. "Could I learn too?" she asked. Soon, Princess Kira was teaching her first dance lesson, with Alex helping but letting her lead. The Centauri child learned quickly, and then a Vorthon child joined them. Princess Kira adapted the dance for each child's abilities. Just as Alex had adapted it for her, Valeria felt her heart swelling with pride. Her daughter was not just participating in activities, she was leading them. She was using her own experience of being different to help others feel included. Dr. Sarah Martinez, a human scientist who worked on the station, approached their table. "Empress Valeria, may I speak with you privately?" They walked to a quiet corner of the dining hall. Dr. Martinez pulled out a tablet filled with charts and data. "I've been studying the interaction patterns on this station for the past year," she said. "I've measured cooperation, innovation, problem-solving speed, and conflict resolution. Do you know what I've found?" Valeria shook her head, curious despite herself. "The most successful teams, the ones that solve problems fastest and create the best solutions, are always the most diverse," Dr. Martinez explained. "Groups that include beings with different abilities, different perspectives, different ways of thinking consistently outperform homogeneous groups." She showed Valeria the data. Mixed species teams solved puzzles 40% faster than single-species teams. Diplomatic negotiations involving diverse perspectives reached agreement 60% more often. Research projects with varied participants made more breakthrough discoveries. "Your daughter," Dr. Martinez continued, "has a unique perspective because of her experiences. That perspective is not a weakness. It's a strength that could benefit your entire empire." Valeria stared at the data, trying to process what she was seeing. Everything she had believed about strength and weakness was being proven wrong by cold, hard facts. That evening she sat with Princess Kira in their quarters. Her daughter was drawing pictures of all the new friends she had made, adding details about how each one moved differently and what made them special. "Mother," Princess Kira said without looking up from her drawing, "why do our people think being different is bad?" The question was so direct, so innocent, that it took Valeria's breath away. "What do you mean, my dear?" "The humans in Centauri and Vorthan all think differences make people special, but our people hide anyone who is different." Why? Valeria had no good answer. She had followed traditions without questioning them, accepted beliefs without examining them. She had hidden her daughter not because it was right, but because it was what she had been taught to do. "I think," she said slowly, "our people have been wrong about many things." Princess Kira looked up from her drawing. "Could we change their minds? Could we show them what I learned today?" The idea was terrifying and wonderful at the same time. Change the minds of an entire empire? Challenge traditions that had existed for thousands of years? It would be the greatest battle Valeria had ever fought. And she would be fighting against her own people, but looking at her daughter's hopeful face, she realized she had already made her choice. The moment she had allowed Kira to dance, she had started down a path that could only lead to one place. "Yes, my dear," she said, taking her daughter's hand. "We can try to change their minds. We can show them that being different is not a weakness. It's a gift." Princess Kira smiled and went back to her drawing. She was sketching a picture of beings from many species dancing together in a great circle. At the center of the circle was a young Zephyrian girl in a walking device, leading the dance with joy and confidence. Valeria looked at the drawing and saw the future her daughter was imagining. A future where differences were celebrated instead of hidden. A future where cooperation replaced conquest. A future where the Zephyrian Empire could be strong not because it forced everyone to be the same, but because it allowed everyone to be themselves. It was a beautiful future, and for the first time in her life, Empress Valeria Nexus believed it might be possible. Tomorrow, she would begin the hardest battle of her career. Not a battle to conquer others, but a battle to free her own people from the chains of their narrow thinking. The dance had ended, but the real change was just beginning. The third day of negotiations began like the others, but Empress Valeria was a different person than she had been just 2 days before. She walked into the conference room with Princess Kira beside her, something that shocked every Zephyrian. In the room, General Kane rushed to her side. "Your Majesty, what are you doing?" "The princess should not be seen in official meetings. This could destroy our reputation." Valeria looked at him with calm, steady eyes. "Our reputation has been built on lies, General. It is time to build it on truth instead." The other delegates noticed Princess Kira immediately. Some looked surprised, others concerned. But many smiled and waved at her, remembering the joy she had brought to the dining hall. Princess Kira waved back, no longer afraid to be seen. Ambassador Lisa Monroe called the session to order. "Today we hope to reach a final agreement on the territorial disputes and trade relations between the Zephyrian Empire and the Galactic Council." Valeria stood up, her armor gleaming under the lights. But when she spoke, her voice was different. It was still strong, but not harsh. It was still commanding, but not cruel. "Before we discuss territories and trade, I have something important to say," she announced. "For 3 days I have listened to your arguments about peace and cooperation. I dismissed them as weakness. I was wrong." The room became very quiet. A Zephyrian Empress admitting she was wrong was something that had never happened in recorded history. "My daughter," Valeria continued, placing her hand on Princess Kira's shoulder, "has taught me more about strength in 2 days than I learned in 40 years of conquest. She has shown me that true power comes not from hiding our differences, but from celebrating them." General Kane's face was pale with shock. Other Zephyrian officers looked like they were about to faint. Their Empress was speaking words that went against everything their society believed? "Princess Kira has a genetic condition that affects her. Mobility and speech," Valeria said clearly. "In our society, this would be seen as a shameful weakness. But I have watched her bring together beings from across the galaxy through nothing but kindness and joy. She has accomplished what my armies could not. She has created unity without conquest. Princess Kira looked up at her mother with shining eyes. She had never heard her condition spoken of so proudly, so openly. Ambassador Monroe leaned forward. What are you proposing, Empress? I am proposing that the Zephyrian Empire join the Galactic Council not as conquerors, but as partners, Valeria said. I am proposing that we learn from other species instead of trying to dominate them. I am proposing that we build strength through diversity instead of uniformity. The Zephyrian delegation erupted in angry whispers. This was not just a change. In policy, this was a complete transformation of their entire way of life. Your Majesty, General Kane said loudly, you cannot mean this. Our people will never accept such weakness. Valeria turned to face him, and her eyes were as hard as steel. General Kane, in the past 2 days I have seen my daughter accomplish things that our greatest warriors could not. She created peace where there was division. She built bridges where there were walls. She showed strength without violence, power without cruelty. If that is weakness, then we have been calling the wrong things strong. Dr. Sarah Martinez stood up and activated a large screen. If I may, I would like to share some data that supports the Empress's observations. The screen filled with charts and graphs showing the performance of diverse teams versus homogeneous ones. The evidence was overwhelming. In every category measured, diversity led to better results. The Galactic Council species have been sharing this research for years, Dr. Martinez explained. Societies that include and value all their members, regardless of physical or mental differences, consistently outperform those that do not. They are more innovative, more peaceful, and more prosperous. A Centauri diplomat named Elder Tran stood up. The Centauri Republic would be honored to share our inclusive education programs with the Zephyrian Empire. We have found that when all children learn together, they all become stronger. A Vorthan representative added, our research institutes would welcome Zephyrian scientists. We have learned that different perspectives lead to breakthrough discoveries that single-minded thinking cannot achieve. Alex Carter, who had been quietly serving refreshments, asked permission to speak. Your Majesty, I am just a waiter, but I have seen something amazing happen here. Your daughter has a gift for bringing out the best in people. That gift could help heal not just your empire, but the entire galaxy. Princess Kira tugged on her mother's armor. Mother, may I say something? Valeria nodded, her heart full of pride and love. Princess Kira stood up slowly, using her walking device for support. When she spoke, her words were careful but clear, and everyone listened with respect. I used to think I was broken, she said. I thought I was ashamed of my family and my people. But the friends I have made here have shown me that I am not broken. I am just different, and different can be beautiful. She looked around the room at all the various species represented. Everyone here is different from everyone else, but you work together. You help each other. You make the galaxy better because you are different, not in spite of it. Her voice grew stronger as she continued. I want to go home and show my people that being different is not something to hide. It is something to celebrate. I want to help them see that we can be stronger by including everyone, not by pushing people away. The applause that followed was long and heartfelt. Even some of the Zephyrian officers joined in, moved by the young princess's words. Valeria felt tears on her face, but she did not wipe them away. My daughter will be my heir, she announced. Not because she has overcome her differences, but because her differences have given her wisdom that I lacked. She will lead our empire into a new age of cooperation and inclusion. General Kane stood up angrily. Your Majesty, the military will never accept this. A disabled ruler would be seen as weakness. Then we will change what our people see as weakness, Valeria replied firmly. We will show them that true strength comes from lifting others up, not from putting them down. Ambassador Monroe smiled broadly. The Galactic Council is ready to welcome the Zephyrian Empire as full members, with all the rights and responsibilities that entails. Over the next several hours, they worked out the details of the agreement. The Zephyrian Empire would stop its aggressive expansion and return occupied worlds to their original inhabitants. In exchange, they would gain access to the Council's shared technologies, trade networks, and educational programs. Most importantly, they would establish the first Galactic Institute for Inclusive Excellence with Princess Kira as its director. The institute would research ways to include beings of all abilities in education, work, and society. Alex Carter was offered a position as the institute's first human advisor. "I would be honored," he said, "but only if Princess Kira thinks I'm qualified." Princess Kira laughed, a sound that had become music to everyone who heard it. "You taught me how to dance with joy. Now I want to teach the whole galaxy." As the negotiations concluded, Valeria realized that she had not lost power by changing her beliefs. She had gained something much more valuable. She had gained a future where her daughter could be proud of who she was, where her empire could grow through cooperation instead of conquest, and where differences would be celebrated as gifts rather than hidden as shamas. The journey back to the Zephyrian homeworld would be long, and changing an entire empire's mindset would be the greatest challenge of her life. But looking at Princess Kira's confident smile and remembering the joy of that first dance, Valeria knew it was a battle worth fighting. 3 days ago, she had been the Empress of a mighty but isolated empire. Today, she was the leader of a people, ready to join the galaxy as partners and friends. The transformation was complete, but the real work was just beginning. In years to come, historians would mark this moment as the beginning of the golden age of galactic cooperation. But Valeria would always remember it as the day her daughter taught her how to dance.